On Europa, midday was when Jupiter's glare poured through the atmosphere like liquid copper and through the ice into cathedral whites. The research dome sat on that brightness like a blister half laboratory, half greenhouse, with a training field stitched onto its southern flank where the ice had been scoured flat, and the snow anchored with grid lines. At the rim, hoarfrost curled like feathers. In the dome's control gallery, Dr. Neria Avedisian pressed a palm to the plex and watched her breath purl against its chill. "Range telemetry is live," said Yash, her senior tech, from behind a forest of monitors. "Spectral suite looks good. Hypers, IR, FMCW radar, LiDAR, ultrasound. We even fixed the Mwone tunnel. Don't ask me how." Neria glanced back with a dry smile. "I won't. Bring up the training lanes." The hollow bloomed into 6 lanes in one unbroken panorama, 20-meter corridors bounded by frost stakes, dotted with imported scrub from the hydroponics wing. The shrubs looked absurd under Europa's sky-stunted, pale green domes that belonged to a summer park, not a moon where the air inside your lungs could hard freeze in seconds. Beyond the field, the ice plain ran toward the horizon with all the patience of a glacier, and over it hung the planet, the big one, a marbled god, orange belts, ivory storms, the great red wound. An adaptive suited figure stepped into lane 1 with a fluid, seal-slick grace. Then another in lane 2. 3 more ghosted forward. They made no sound except the soft arterial hum of their photonic skins coming to temperature. "Spectre 9 South are sensed," Yash said. "Cadet tags in the clear, Ruiz, Mogadam, Debel, Sato, and Osei." At the name, Neria's attention snagged. "Kieran's in lane 5. He drew the short straw," Yash said, and the corner of his mouth ticked. "He'll complain later. Later is fine," Neria murmured. She'd fought to run this trial, an honest comparison of cutting-edge cloaks versus the blunt, unromantic tactics the military liked to call fieldcraft. The board had hated the idea. Funds flowed toward quantum metasheets and layered M-shrouds, not mud and brush. But Neria had insisted on worlds where power could die, where an ion storm could cook your batteries and the cold could shatter ceramic. The primitive sometimes had teeth, and something in Europa's thin chemical fog, something that ghosted in the brines and algae tanks, had been nagging at her models for months. There were dips in the noise floor, phase drifts that didn't make sense. So, a test. Let the suits run. Let the soldiers crawl. Watch who vanished. "Control," came the tinny voice of the range marshal over the intercom. "This is range. All lanes green. On your mark. Copy, range," Neria said. "Set T0 at my mark. Drones 1 through for orbit at 50 meters. 5 and 6 run the perimeters. Bring up the acoustic net." Around the gallery, chairs squeaked as interns leaned forward. Company observers in crisp slate jackets cleared their throats, trying to look permissive. The military liaison from the garrison, Commander Shu, stood with arms folded and a face of iron. He liked the suits. He didn't like tests he hadn't ordered. Neria set her hand on the console and tapped the start. "Go." 5 figures leaned into motion. On screen, the Spectre 9 South dilated their skins like shutters, tasting the ambient light. Thin film antennas along their backs sensed to the dome's calibration tone. The suits weren't true invisibility, not the beloved myths you still got parallax. There were polarization tells, but they were good. To the naked eye, the soldiers blurred into the field like heat haze. Thermal spikes sank. Even the radar return went fluffy and vague, the way a snowdrift eats sound. In lane 5. The 5th figure did not blur. He stalled, head cocked. It was Kieran Osei, 20, maybe 21, a scholarship kid from the orbital academies who still wrote thank you notes by hand, and had been observed dismantling the galley coffee machine to improve its pressure dynamics. He was lean, restless, a bundle of jokes and precise hands. Neria liked him and distrusted that liking. "Kieran," she said on the private channel. "Lane 5, you're lagging." His reply was a whisper threaded with humor. "Copy, Doc. I'm experiencing technical difficulties." "What kind of philosophical ones?" She caught the grin in his voice and kept her own voice level. "Osei, okay," he sighed. Suits pinching like an old ant. "I'll proceed." On screen, Kieran bent and unlatched something at his wrists. The Spectre's forearm plates peeled back. He unsealed his hood and sloughed it off like a skin. The visor clattered against the frost stake. A couple of interns laughed before clapping hands over their mouths. Evenshue's eyebrows climbed. "What is he doing?" One of the company observers hissed. "Cadet Osei," Neria said, "flat enough to iron sheets." "You will resuit immediately." "Doc," Kieran said, not unkindly, "you wanted a control, right? Primitive versus fancy? I'm your primitive." He unsealed the torso and stepped out of the suit to his underlayer thermal weave over skin. He kicked free of the leg plates and shook out his arms like a man after a swim. Then, with the casual inevitability of someone who had nettled adults his entire life, he turned to the lane's supply bin, pried the lid, and came up with a sloppy armful of mud. It wasn't honest Earth mud. Nothing on Europa was honest. The training field's slush was desalinated melt mixed with imported soil, engineering clays, and a ration of the brine water the dome bled off the greenhouse loops. It was a chemistry set with a memory. Kieran scooped it like paint and streaked it over his cheeks, forehead, neck. He slicked it down his arms. He dabbed it over his heat pulse at the throat, under the jaw. He gleamed like wet stone. "Izzy," an intern began, half delighted, half appalled. "Smearing on a heat mask," Yash said, faintly admiring. "Old school." Kieran reached into the bin again and yanked free a thicket of clipped hydroponic shrubs knobbly. Stuff with soft, pale leaves engineered to thrive at 9 degrees Celsius and 60% humidity. Someone in horticulture had grafted them into brush bundles for this exact test. Kieran shook the water off and strapped 2 bundles to his shoulders with cable ties. He stuck a third over his pack. Tree man, bush monster, a soldier in a child's idea of a ghillie suit. The gallery's laughter popped like corn. Not cruel laughter, nervous, delighted. Even Neria felt a bubble rise in her throat and bit it down. The suits in the other lanes ghosted forward like modern miracles. And here was her control variable turning himself into a swamp. Commander Shu did not laugh. "Dr. Avedisian," he said quietly, "contain your cadet." Neria lifted one hand in apology and toddled Kieran private again. "This isn't the brief, I know," Kieran said. "But you said, compare the systems under realistic field conditions. What's more realistic than the suit going down? Besides, my grandmother said, if you can smell the loam, they can't find you." He paused. "Also, the suit rides chafy. Kieran, I'll stick to my lane. If I embarrass myself, you get to tell me so for the rest of my life." Neria's teeth clicked together. She considered ordering him out. She considered the board, Shu, the observers, the weeks of negotiating to even get this slot on the schedule. She considered him, mud-slick and green-shouldered, standing there with his pulse steady at 84. His voice very calm. "A proceed," she said, and hated herself a little for how much she wanted to see what happened. Kieran melted no. That was the wrong verb. He flowed into motion. He kept low. He used the shrubs as geometry, not cover, letting them break his silhouette into a scatter of verticals and curves. He paused when the drones shifted, and when he paused, he breathed as if the air cost money. His profile on the thermal monitor shrank. The mud pulled his emission down to near ambient, his heat collecting in a rect angle across his core like a swallowed ember. The acoustic net plotted a low, insectal whisper. LiDAR painted him as to blurs and a hole. "Cute," said the company observer. "Can we please demonstrate our actual product now?" "Eyes on lane 5, Neria said without looking away. The adaptive suits in the other lanes were working as advertised. Ruiz in lane 1 ghosted past drone 2, and the drone's tracking reticle jittered, uncertain. Sato in lane 4 crouched, and his outline mirrored the scrub behind him. So perfectly the intern nearest to Neria made a small, involuntary sound. The suits bled heat through microchannels, scattering it into the ground. The radar return off their latticework skins looked fuzzed, like tissue. They were art.kiran, artless, crept from shadow to shrub and curled into a low. Odd shape, shoulders hunched, knees kicked sideways, head ducked. He looked like a pile of litter. The gallery laughed again. This time she almost smiled. "Drones, mark lane 5, Neria said. "Let's see his registration." "Copy," said Yash. He clicked a key. On the hollow, a red box appeared around Kieran's smear of heat. And then the box shivered and fell off. No lock, Yash said. That's hang on. The system tried again. The box crept, stuttered, and slid away to grasp a shrub's leaf instead, then lost even that. Thermal drift. Nerya asked. Ambient is -18, Yash said, frowning. He should register. Pump more power to Drone 3's fleur, Shu said. Resolve him. Already at spec, Yash said. Hang on, in lane 5, Kieran moved again. He timed his crawl with the drones past the way you time your crossing with traffic. When you're certain you're visible because to his animal brain, he had to be visible. As he slid, the LiDAR overlay went grainy. The acoustic net hiccuped and returned a long, low note like whale song. The radar return that had been fuzzed went clean. No, not clean. It went blank. Where is he? Murmured an intern. Right there, said the company observer, jabbing a finger hopelessly at the image. Right there? Yash's hands were already a blur on the console. Cycle the radar frequency. Drop by half. On the screen, the radar layer shimmered. Textures in the ice sliding like tectonic plates. Kieran should have snapped back as a lump, a difference, a something. He did not. The software outlined statistical anomalies and found 3 near the rim of his lane. A gust of blown snow, a twitching leaf at the end of a branch, and a patch of ice that had absorbed 10 watts of heat more than it should have. Tell me he isn't under the ice, Shu said. He is not under the ice, Nerya said automatically. The ground there was 16 meters thick to the first brine seam. Beyond that, see, he's doing something with angle. With phase, we're not running phase experiments, the observer said, thin with irritation. We're running a demonstration of the Spectre. Then stop watching lane 5, Nerya said, still mild. And the observer shut up as if she'd slapped him. Drone 5 reports a calms anomaly, Yash said. Microdropouts around lane 5. Packet error rate spiking when it crosses his lane boundary. What kind of error? Nerya asked. Randomized. Like static, but not noise-shaped like our environment. It's weird. Kieran's vitals sat in a neat column along the left side of the wall, small, green. Reassuring. Heart rate 86. O2 saturation 99. Core temperature 36.4 and holding. Skin temperature depressed under the mud by 6 degrees. His EEG was a calm Delta Garden. He was fine. Except the instruments didn't see him, and the more they didn't, the more they refused to try. How's your signal, lane 5? Nerya asked. Silence. Cadet Osei. Confirm radio health. On his channel, nothing. Then a hiss like rain on foil, then a click, then nothing again. Range. We have a comms failure on lane 5, Nerya said aloud. Hold positions in all other lanes. Copy, came the marshal. All lanes hold. In lane 1, Ruiz froze mid-crawl. In lane 4, Sato went statue. In lane 5, the smear that should be Kieran did nothing. The drones spun their lazy orbits. The hollow hummed softly like a throat clearing. We're dropping LiDAR resolution around his last location, Yash said. That's a software. No, that's not software. That's return loss. That patch is eating our light, eating, repeated the observer, as if the word offended him. Strong absorptive scatterers will do that, Yash muttered. But not like this. Shu's voice had lost its patience. Call him out, doctor, Kieran, Nerya said. And this time she let his given name come out like a rope she could throw. Stand. Break position. Wave your arms. Make yourself big. Silence. Then something. A sound that wasn't a sound. The barest crunch of frost. Magnified in her own ears because she was hunting it. A shadow shifted. Or Jupiter's light shifted. Or something in her made-up mind shifted. Because when you looked hard enough at a pattern, your brain would give you one. Kieran, she tried again. Softer. This isn't funny. It is a little funny, Yash whispered, which did not help. The Mwone tunnel. That awkward contraption the board had not wanted to fund sent up a scratchy line of numbers. It wasn't meant for this. It was meant to see voids in bulk ice, to predict where a drilling bore might hit a pocket. But Nerya had insisted they run it, too, because her models didn't like to be lonely. And now the Mwone flux readings round lane 5 hiccuped in a way that made the hair at the nape of her neck remember old stories about caves and gods. Run a baseline subtraction, she said. And Yash did, and the hiccup remained. We're getting variation at 7 sigma, he said after a beat. I don't know what that means in human. It means something is very not normal, Neria said. She exhaled slowly. Range, I'm calling a pause. Ruiz, Sato, Mogadam, Debel returned to start points. Lane 5, if you can hear me, hold position. Do nothing. We're coming to you. Dr. Avedisian, Shu began. She turned. He's my cadet, she said quietly. And he is somewhere between 2 shrubs with mud on his face. For the first time all morning. Shu looked not annoyed, but wary. You think he's fallen into a crevasse we didn't map, or into a brine slot, or he's right there. Commander, she said, pointing to the blank spot on the map as if pointing could anchor the world. And we are not seeing him. Why we are not seeing him? I intend to find out without putting another person into that same condition. The playfulness died in the gallery. The interns pressed their backs to their chairs as if making room with their bodies. Could make room in the room for fear. The observer put his handkerchief away and did not take it out again. Neria keyed the manual channel, the one that rode the copper wire in the stake, at the edge of lane 5, old-fashioned, ugly, stubborn. Kieran, she said into that wire, if you can hear me through the ground, do not move. I'm going to walk toward you. I will stop 2 meters short of your last mark. If you can see me, raise your left hand once. She clipped a safety harness to the handrail along the gallery's exit and stepped into the antechamber. The air lightened, chilled, sharpened. The dome exhaled her like a sigh. She pulled a mask over her mouth and nose the outside air wouldn't kill her instantly. But she preferred her lungs unharmed and palmed the outer door. It rolled aside with a noise like old ice snapping. The light hit her like snow glare. Through the glass visor she saw the field again, but not tamed by the wall anymore. The cold had grit to it, as if it were refusing to be breathed. Every sound was bigger, the drone rotors like angry bees. The distant creak of ice shifting in the dome's foundation. The whisper of wind that had crossed a world to touch her cheek. She took the stairs down to the field one by one. Her soles crunched frost. The lane stakes stood waist high, their flags motionless. The imported shrubs smelled faintly, impossibly, of green of cut stems and something peppery she couldn't name. The mud bin, where Kieran had dipped his hands, gave off a warm, mineral breath. She looked at it and then away, because looking at it made the idea unfurl in her mind that mud could be alive. At the edge of lane 5 she stopped and crouched and pressed her gloved fingers to the ice. The cold chewed through the glove and into the bones of her fingers. She spoke again into the wire. Kieran, 2 meters in. Show me a hand, and for a heartbeat, for an impossible flicker. The air in front of her glittered not like snow, not like anything her eyes had been trained on. It glittered like a thought trying to become real and failing at the last second. The hairs on her forearm leaped. Then it was gone. Behind her, on the gallery's speakers, Yash's voice went high and thin. Doctor, the comms just zeroed. All drones, all lanes, the entire field just dropped. The silence that flooded the field made her stomach fall. No rotor hum, no soft electronics. Even the dome's heartbeat, the quiet thrum of heat exchange and pumps and fans, seemed to pull away. Kieran, she said, and it was almost a prayer. Her visor showed her the curve of her own breath for a beat. Beyond it, lane 5 was only shrubs, frost, the low glitter of the world. Something touched her boot. No, wait. A brush, a suggestion, a question mark. She swallowed, counted to 5, and did not move. In the gallery the systems came back in a stagger. The drones resumed their anger. The wall heaved itself from black to data giddy. Numbers crawled up their ladders. Neria rose, very slowly, and backed 1 step, 2, 3, until the wire at the stake tugged her wrist. She re-anchored the safety and let out the breath she'd kept trapped in her chest, as if it had been the only warm thing she owned. Back in the gallery, Shu met her at the door with a stare that had lost its iron and found its suspicion. What did you see? Nothing, Neria said, which was true a dozen ways. And that's the problem. The silence of the dome lasted only seconds, but Kieran felt it like hours. 1 heartbeat he was crouched in mud, wrapped in bushes like a bad cartoon of a soldier. The next, the world's sounds folded inward, as though he'd been shoved under water. Drone hums vanished. Even his own ragged breath didn't reach his ears. Am I deaf? He touched his throat, then his chest, pressing hard to feel the reassurance of breath moving. His lungs worked, his heart thudded, his blood moved warm and fierce. But the noise, the music of being alive was gone. He parted a branch strapped to his shoulder and peered toward the lane's end. Beyond the shrubs, he saw the ice plain stretching to the horizon, Jupiter hanging overhead like a molten scar in the sky. And yet, something about it looked wrong. The air shimmered faintly, as if he were staring through glass that wasn't polished right. Lines bent. Shadows didn't obey. The horizon had a tilt. He raised his comm to his mouth. "Control, this is Osei. I'm still here. Do you copy?" Nothing. Not even static. Kieran froze, staring at the tiny display on his wrist. Normally, there would be signal strength icons, encryption codes, heartbeat pings back to the dome. Now, the screen was bare. A blank pulse line, flat as the dead. "Okay," he whispered, the words soundless in the void. His lips moved. His chest expanded. Yet the act of speaking had been stolen. "Okay, don't panic. Just mud, just bushes. You're not magic, you're not cursed. You're just something." Flickered at the edge of his sight. He turned sharply. Nothing there, only the brittle shrubs, the gloss of frost. But the shimmer in the air rippled like heat above asphalt. Slowly, he lowered himself again, curling into the same odd, hunched knot he had practiced. When he stilled, the shimmer stilled too. He thought of the spores. He hadn't cared, scooping the mud Europa as living soil, they called it, laced with colonies that helped scrub carbon in the greenhouse domes. The mud had clung oddly to his skin, heavier than earth soil, faintly luminous in streaks when he first smeared it on. Now those streaks pulsed, barely visible but undeniably alive. He touched a patch on his forearm, warm, almost electric. The spores thrummed in time with his heartbeat, as if sensing. And when he exhaled slowly, holding as still as a statue, they pulsed in harmony, dimming his heat, bending the shimmer, until even his own eyes couldn't tell where his arm ended and the shrub began. "This isn't camouflage," he thought, the words locked inside his skull. "This is." He didn't finish the thought, because across the lane, a drone drifted overhead, its belly sensors glowing. Kieran ducked automatically. The machine passed within meters, scanning in tight cones. Not a flicker, no alert ping, no shift in its pattern. "It can't see me." Excitement burned through his fear. He stood, bold, waving both arms. The drone floated past, blind. But the thrill didn't last. A darker realization followed. The mud wasn't just blocking signals. It was erasing him. His body heat gone. His calm gone. His voice gone. The world was treating him as though he'd slipped one step sideways, off the map of reality. And in that sideways place, he wasn't alone. The shimmer moved again. Not with him this time, but around him. It elongated, stretched, until it resembled a figure, tall, fluid, not quite solid. A body made of refracted air. It tilted its head. Another joined it, flickering in and out like a glitch in a simulation. Kieran's breath caught, though no sound escaped. His body screamed predator, but his mind whispered something else. They've been here. They hadn't appeared because of him. They had always been in this hidden layer, invisible, until he stumbled into their quiet dimension by accident. The taller figure leaned closer. He felt, not heard, a vibration, like a question without words. Instinctively, he touched his chest. The spores pulsed an answer, betraying him, illuminating faintly like a heartbeat light. The figure responded in kind. Its body rippled with the same pulse. A mirror. Kieran wanted to run, but his legs locked. He wanted to shout for Neria, for anyone, but there was no voice left in his throat. All he could do was kneel in the mud, wrapped in bushes, heart hammering, while the invisible beings studied him with their formless eyes. Then, just as suddenly, the mud's glow dimmed. The pulse broke. The world roared back. Drone hums, ice creaks, the hiss of his own breath. His calm shrieked to life with broken static. The figures vanished, collapsing into nothing like water evaporating under heat. Kieran sagged forward, gasping. "To command, do you copy? Lane 5, respond." Voices filled his ear, frantic and overlapping. Neria's voice cut through them, sharp, controlled, demanding. "Kieran, respond." He touched the calm, trembling. I'm here. I never left. But, Doc, I think. He hesitated, eyes scanning the empty air where the figures had stood. I think something else found me. The dome's gallery erupted in overlapping voices as soon as Kieran's transmission broke through. Technicians shouted about recovered signals, the marshal barked for calm, and Commander Shu demanded a hard extraction. But amid the noise, Dr. Neria stayed utterly still, eyes fixed on Lane 5. Quiet, she said. The word wasn't loud, but it carved silence into the room. Kieran, say again. You think something found you? Kieran crouched in the lane, mud flaking from his arms, branches trembling faintly with the shake in his limbs. His voice returned ragged, uneven. Yes, Doc. I don't know what it was. Shapes, tall, not solid. Like mirages that had been waiting for me. They moved when I did. The gallery's air thickened. A young intern muttered a nervous prayer. Can you still see them now? Neria asked. Kieran turned his head slowly, scanning the lane. No, they vanished when the noise came back. It's like when your ears pop after being underwater. 1 second they were close enough to touch, then gone. Could be hallucination. Yash said under his breath. Hypoxia, stress. It wasn't a hallucination. Kieran snapped, cutting him off. His voice cracked, not from disrespect, but from the rawness of what he'd seen. They mirrored me. When my heart sped up, their bodies pulsed in rhythm. They were watching me, not imagined. Commander Shu crossed his arms tighter. Doctor, this is going nowhere useful. He broke procedure. He compromised the test. Pull him out before this fairy tale spreads. But Neria didn't move. Compromised? He just bypassed every modern camouflage suite with mud and shrubs. The system lost him entirely, Commander. Tell me your fancy suits can do the same. Shu's jaw worked, but he didn't reply. Neria keyed her mic again. Kieran, listen carefully. What you did changed the environment. The instruments dropped you. The comms failed. Even our Mwon counts shifted. That mud isn't just dirt, it's carrying organisms. Spores we've never studied outside the greenhouse. They reacted to you. Kieran blinked down at his skin. The mud was drying now, cracking in places. But faint veins of light still flickered beneath the flakes, like dying embers. Yeah, I felt it. They sense with me. Almost like they wanted me hidden. Yash muttered, camouflage by symbiosis. No. Neria corrected softly. By phase displacement. The phrase silenced even Shu. Explain. He said finally. Neria turned to the hollow, pulling up the anomaly charts. When Kieran entered the mud, the spores emitted bioluminescent pulses. That light was not just visible, it radiated across multiple bands. His heat signature dropped below ambient. Radar scatter went blank. LiDAR collapsed into noise. But more than that, the Mwon flux changed. That means his matter wasn't interacting with particles the same way. He wasn't just camouflaged. He was out of phase. The room's temperature seemed to drop with her words. You're saying he slipped out of reality, Shu said flatly. I'm saying, Neria replied. He intersected with a layer of reality we don't usually perceive. She turned back to the screen. And that's where he saw them. The technicians exchanged glances. One coughed nervously. The company observer scribbled furiously into a slate, as though by writing fast enough he could cage the implications. Kieran rose unsteadily to his feet in the lane. Doc, when I was there, I could feel them watching me like I was an intruder. Not angry, just aware. Like I'd walked into their house without knocking. And they mirrored your pulse. Neria asked. Yes, it wasn't hostile. It was curious. He hesitated. But when the spores let go, they disappeared. Like the connection snapped shut. Shu exhaled hard through his nose. Enough mysticism. If the mud does something, we need samples, lab work, sterilized trials. Not ghost stories from a reckless cadet. Neria's gaze sharpened. Commander, if this is real and every instrument says it is, then we've stumbled onto more than camouflage. We've made contact. However primitive, however accidental, Kieran didn't just vanish. He was seen by something already living in that space. The weight of her words pressed into the gallery like an extra atmosphere. Contact. Not with microbes or spores. Not with bacteria scraped from Europa's ocean. But with entities beings sharing the same moon on a different plane. For the first time. No one spoke. On the field. Kieran shivered. He felt the mud tightening against his skin, almost as if reluctant to release him fully. The branches drooped at his shoulders. His calm hissed faintly, the link unstable. He whispered into it, voice hollow, "Doc, I don't think this was just camouflage. I think it was an invitation." And though the gallery bristled with disbelief, no one could deny the tremor in their own bones when he said it. The recovery alarm pulsed red through the gallery as ranged teams scrambled onto the field. Their boots struck the ice in sharp staccato. Voices clipped over secure comms. They surrounded Lane 5, half terrified, half thrilled. While Kieran stood in the middle like a scarecrow dragged through a swamp, the mud was drying, falling away in crusted flakes. The bushes slumped off his shoulders, but his eyes, those were what stopped everyone in their tracks. They glowed faintly, a phosphorescent sheen threaded in the iris, like the same spores had woven themselves into his blood. Dr. Neria descended the ramp 2 steps at a time. She reached him first, brushing off a medic's hand. "Don't touch him until we know what we're dealing with." Kieran tried to smile, but it came out wrong. His lips twitched, the glow in his eyes pulsed, and his voice vibrated in a register just below human hearing. "I'm fine, Doc." The sound crawled over the ice. Several soldiers shifted uneasily. "You're not fine," Neria said, softer. "You're changed. What happened when the spores released you?" Kieran blinked slowly, as if measuring whether to answer. His throat worked, his jaw tightened. Then the words spilled out, fractured but insistent. They noticed. They were already here, waiting. The spores opened the door, and when it shut, he pressed both hands to his temples. "They didn't leave. They left something with me." Neria's heart sank. She looked up to the medics. "Get an isolation unit down here." Now, the military liaison, Commander Shu, stalked across the frost. "Enough. He's compromised. Quarantine, dissection, whatever's necessary. We're not about to coddle a soldier carrying an alien infection." Kieran's laugh was sharp, broken, like glass underfoot. "You don't get it, Commander. They're not infection. They're presence. They're watching through me right now." The glow in his eyes brightened, synchronized with the rhythm of his heartbeat. And then the field shifted. It was subtle at first, shadows bending the wrong direction, frost feathers leaning against the wind, drones stuttering mid-flight. Then came the shimmer like heat haze, but spreading in concentric ripples from Kieran's body. One by one, the shapes appeared again. Tall, fluid silhouettes made of air that wasn't quite there, emerging from nothing around the lane. The soldiers raised their weapons, safeties clicking off. "No," Neria shouted, throwing up both hands. "Stand down." The figures didn't advance. They didn't threaten. They only gathered, for 6, maybe more, orbiting Kieran like silent sentinels. Their bodies rippled faintly in time, with his glowing pulse. One leaned closer, towering over Neria, but its gaze, if it had one, was fixed only on him. And then Kieran spoke again. But the resonance was doubled now. His words carried 2 voices, his own, and a second one layered beneath, deeper, inhuman. "They know we can cross," the chorus said, "and they're waiting." The gallery erupted in shouts. Medics scrambled back. Soldiers raised rifles higher. Yash swore into his console. Commander Shu barked, "Contain him. Contain the anomaly." But Neria couldn't move. She was locked in place, staring at the boy who had walked into mud and come back with the voice of another world. Kieran's head tilted toward her. For an instant, just one, his true smile broke through. "Doc, I think I brought them home." Then the spore's glow flared white-hot in his veins, and the silhouettes vanished all at once, snuffed out like sparks in a gale. Kieran collapsed into the mud, unconscious, leaving only silence. Later, the official record of the camouflage test was sanitized. The entry labeled Lane 5 anomaly cited a failure of instrumentation, compounded by subject non-compliance. No mention of spores, no mention of phase displacement, no mention of contact. But in a sealed vault beneath the dome, Dr. Neria kept the samples. Spores scraped from Kieran's skin, soil still faintly glowing, and one recording that had survived the calm dropout, just 3 seconds of distorted audio, but enough to make her bones vibrate when she played it alone at night. "We're waiting."